Welcome to Shaped by Faith, where we shape our bodies and hearts for God's purposes. My guest today is Marilyn Rhoads. She is the co-founder of Grace Marriage, and Grace Marriage is a marriage ministry that engages couples to put their marriages under the grace of Christ. I love that, Marilyn. I love that you and your husband, Brad, both founded that, and we're going to talk about that and like how that got started. But you're here also to talk about that upcoming Grace Marriage one-day event called
Cherish. So the Cherish event is coming up on February 29th, and we hosted one a couple of years ago and didn't know what kind of response we would get, but over 700 people came.
Wow.
At the River Park Center, and it was just a day to engage your marriage, to be proactive and be encouraged in your marriage. It's also for couples who are doing well, couples that are struggling, and they want answers and how to find help.
We all need that.
Absolutely.
I mean, everyone that's out there that's married, and maybe is it also for people that they're getting ready to be married?
Absolutely.
Okay.
We've had a number of premarital couples come, and we think it's so wonderful. The more of a foundation you can lay prior to getting married, the better.
Absolutely. Marriage is sort of like the body. You've got to keep it healthy.
Absolutely.
Like you've got to move in the direction of keeping it healthy. And so you have to work on the physical body. We need to be working on our marriages daily.
That's exactly right. That's one of the things we say. It's a proactive wellness approach.
You're right.
To keep you from becoming broken, just the same with our bodies. We need to be proactive to keep them from breaking down.
And we all need to be surrounded by other couples also that are also working towards a healthy marriage.
Yes.
So we have, and I'm sure people would become friends. You know, if they showed up at this event, they'd meet other couples that they would have some similar interest in. I think so many times couples get so bogged down in their work life and in raising their children if they have kids that they don't spend that time also with other couples who have a heart for Christ.
Absolutely.
And so we all need to be doing that.
Yes, and be encouraged together. It's just a sweet time of fellowship, of worship. We got so much response about the worship at the last event too, this all community worship group, and they'll be doing even more time in worship too.
And you had a really good response. I mean, over 700 people, I'd say that's pretty good. Marilyn, let's go back to when you used to be a counselor, or you're a counselor, not used to be, but you counseled with children at Counseling Associates, right?
Yes, I did until we had kids, and then I came home to raise them and counseled at home.
Was that a hard transition at all, or did it fit just really well? Did God I'm sure he worked it all out.
Yes.
But was it easier or harder for you to transition?
God just made it really clear. So it was a blessing. And then he allowed us to start working with other couples, and Brad and I have both been able to counsel for a number of years with couples. So that's just been something that I could bring even just in an area of giving and service at our church.
Right. Well, let's talk about the marriage ministry and how Grace Marriage got its start and why.
Okay. Well, our marriage started out a train wreck. We both brought so many wrong things and expectations to marriage that we really were struggling about a year into our marriage. And then God transformed our marriage. And we didn't think at that time he would take us into marriage ministry, but we started working with youth at that time at our church. And couples that were going to get married through our youth group started asking us, hey, we want what y'all have. Would you be willing to do premarital counseling with us? And we said, well, we've never done it before, but if you're okay being a guinea pig, we'll research and learn all we can. So we did. We talked to other premarital counselors. And so couples would come to our home after we got our kids to bed at night. And then more couples started asking, and then that led to groups. And then we started marriage groups. And then ultimately, our church asked Brad if he would be the lay marriage pastor. And while we were doing that, we were counseling with premarital couples, and we were working with couples in crisis. And we saw there's this gap. Like, what about for all of us that are just trying to get through life? And we thought, if you can reach couples before they're struggling, what a greater impact you can have. If you take a couple that's doing okay and take them to thriving, rather than a couple that's waited till it's, they're knocking on divorce's door to get help, to reach out for help. So we saw that Brad was in business and he was doing coaching that was proactive for his business. We're proactive, hopefully, most of us with our health and our bodies, but marriage is a piece where we aren't proactive.
You're right.
And so Brad started writing some materials, and I was helping him write materials, and we thought, let's just try and get some couples together and see if we meet on a quarterly basis, and just to take time away from the fray to work on our marriage and see what our goals are, see what we want to accomplish, and then move forward. It grew their business just very much, and we thought, why couldn't I do the same for marriages? So we asked 10 couples to do this with us, and they wanted to come back to year 2. And then our church said, would you do this for other couples? So we just did a talk about it, and 50 couples signed up the first day we mentioned it. And then
wow.
Other churches started asking, and we just saw the Lord moving. And then a few years into it, we realized this is something he was calling us to full-time. So Brad then moved out of practicing law into grace marriage full-time. And now, by God's grace, we're in 94 churches in other countries, and over 4,800 participants are taking a wellness approach for their marriage. So
That's
we're
huge.
really excited about that.
I mean, and yay, God. I mean, look what God has done. I'm amazed because so many times when couples are struggling, they may not attend church, or they may start slacking in that area. But obviously, God had you both in church, and obviously this was his plan all along. And so you trained in it in your own marriage. And then it's a beautiful story. Thank you for sharing that. So when did Grace Marriage start? Like, how long has it been going on?
Well, we've been doing coaching for 7 years, but about 4 years ago is when we transitioned into doing this full time.
Wow.
So
it's that's in a lot of churches in a lot of countries. So what is it, a program? Is it like a Bible study? What is it exactly?
So here's what a typical day looks like. And I mentioned it's a quarterly coaching model where you take time on a Saturday or a Friday or even an evening where you take 4 to 6 hours, and you have a facilitator that walks you through the materials. So every time we come together on a quarter, we have these rhythms you go through. First is an eye exam. And that's where you sit down and you take time to pause and think about what you're grateful for with your spouse. What has gone well over the last 90 days? And focus, like Philippians tells us to, on the good, the lovely, the praiseworthy, the admirable. Dwell on these things about your spouse and even write them down. And we've had so many couples say that's one of their favorite parts, because we often don't take the time to share how much we love and care for our spouse and focus on these things. So that's the first part of the day. And then we have different lessons. Every year we're writing materials for year 5. So there will be different topics like social media and the phone, which can be such a huge issue, on how do we set parameters around this to help our marriage, and grace. And I want to get into that just a second more, but it's always the focus is on grace, because while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. And our marriages are to be a picture of the gospel of Jesus Christ. And so our world teaches us this performance-based marriage. If you do for me, then I'll do for you. That's not what happened with Christ. Yet while we were still sinners, he died for us. So instead of having this performance-based marriage, you have this grace-based marriage and this rescue mentality. So if Brad's struggling, because we're all going to struggle, we're not going to do it right all the time. Instead of taking offense to that, even remind myself, yet while I was still a sinner, Christ died for me, and I'm going to lay down my life for my spouse. I'm going to go towards him rather than distance myself from him, which creates greater distance. And the couples that are in grace marriage, they say that, and for us, you still struggle at times, but you get over it so much faster.
Absolutely.
Because if I struggle and Brad, it's God's kindness that leads us to repentance. And if he responds in kindness when I've created an offense, then that leads to reconciliation so fast. We can have a frustrating morning and then laugh about it that night. Whereas if we're in this performance trap, well, you didn't do this for me, so I'm not going to do this for you. And that's really what the world teaches us. Now, this does not mean you stay in abuse or infidelity.
Right.
Because if you're in danger, that is not grace to allow that. You need to get safe, or if you're struggling with infidelity, you need to seek help for those things.
Right. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to hear more from Marilyn and all about Grace Marriage and the event that's coming up on February 29th. Everyone stay tuned. Welcome back to Shaped by Faith, where we shape our bodies and hearts for God's purposes. Marilyn Rhoads is my guest. She's a co-founder of Grace Marriage, and it's a marriage ministry that is amazing, that engages couples to put their marriage under the grace of Christ. And Marilyn, you were kind of walking me through the steps of Grace Marriage.
Yes.
So I want you to continue walking us through it.
Okay. So I shared about the eye exam and then why it's Grace Marriage based on the foundation of Christ. And then another thing that we do that couples love is an intimacy igniter. And that's where we give guided questions where couples get alone and they spend 10 to 15 minutes each just sharing what's on their heart. It's a time in a neutral environment where you can talk about some of those tough issues rather than right in the heat of the moment. And couples say that they don't often set aside time to really listen to each other. You know, we pick up our phones or you're running through the day by day. So that's another piece that people love about that's in every single time. And then also we have a 621 challenge, and it's based on that verse, where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. And if you invest in your marriage, you're going to treasure it more. And it's so important to go on a date with your spouse. We encourage couples to do it weekly. Brad and I, we have 5 kids. Like, we need a date.
Yes,
every
you do.
week. Yeah. and sometimes it feels like climbing a mountain, getting out the door to go. But it's so worth it because it keeps us unified. And we've got 4 daughters, and the best thing I can do for them is for them to watch me love their dad well.
You're right.
So we want to teach our children that marriage, after God, it's marriage. And then showing that to our kids is so important because we're in such a child-centered culture.
You're right.
And then our social media and phones, I think our marriages get the leftovers. Just if I can fit it in, we'll do something. And that you cannot thrive doing that. So that's the other piece that's really important.
Wow. It sounds like everyone needs to be going through Grace Marriage.
Aww.
Now, when you were talking about the different steps that you go through, is there a facilitator? Is that what you said?
Yes.
So there's someone right there with you?
Yeah. Well, there's a facilitator that it's really easy to facilitate a group. And so there's a facilitator. We're in a number of churches in Owensboro. And so even if you're not involved in a church, we have couples from other churches or couples that don't even go to church that have started coming to Pleasant Valley to do Grace Marriage. So you could call First Baptist or Bellevue. There's 6 or 7 churches in Owensboro that are doing Grace Marriage that you could plug in with.
Oh, wow. Now, how long of a program is it?
It is an ongoing program. So you meet quarterly. So we're in year 5. With the group that we're doing. We've been doing coaching for 7 years. We need it every quarter, and the materials change every time. And we've also introduced a second model that's 6 and 6, where people could incorporate it into a Sunday school class or a small group. You'd meet 6 times weekly in the spring and 6 times in the fall.
Oh, that's
so
good.
We're trying to offer based on people's needs. We just want people to prioritize their marriages.
That's right, and get them healthy.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone's happier when a marriage is healthy.
Absolutely.
It benefits everyone, and it extends out, not only in the family, but it goes out. You know, it affects everyone.
That's right.
Let's talk about that one-day marriage event, February 29th. So tell us who the speakers are, and I read who they are, and they're pretty amazing.
Oh, we are so excited. We coming from Focus on the Family, or Greg and Aaron Smalley, they speak nationally all around the nation. And he comes from a strong family of marriage leaders, his father, his brother. So we're so excited to have them come in from Focus on the Family and share with us their part of their testimony. And then we have Dennis Schweinberg, who's a comedian he travels all around the world. He's hysterical. So he's going to talk about the funny things about marriage.
And we need to laugh.
Absolutely.
I mean, things are serious, but then we need to laugh too.
That's right. And then I mentioned too, the worship team is phenomenal. It's just a wonderful time of worship. And then community, like you mentioned, all the other people that you'll see there, lots of people from Owensboro, but people have come from all over Kentucky and Indiana, and hotels are even giving discounts to people who want to stay the night in the hotels here in Owensboro.
Oh, wow.
As well. And then Bill Reeser is a man that is sharing his testimony. He was a basketball player. He's speaking nationally and has written a book. And he and his wife, their testimony is profound. They went, from just infidelity. Their marriage was in crisis, and God rescued their marriage. So their testimony, they spoke on our at Grace Marriage once, and we had so many people interested in that because I know there's so many couples hurting. And to hear a message of hope, like if they can do this, we can too.
Absolutely.
So that's
why
another
we're
thing
supposed
we're
to
excited
share.
about. That's right. That's right.
So the whole day, okay, the hours for the day are what?
Yes, from 1 p.m. to 6 p.m. on February 29th.
Okay, will you be listening the whole time? If you're in the audience, if you're attending, will you be listening? Will you be interacting?
Yes, you will be listening. We'll be worshiping. We'll be sharing. They'll have different. It's going to be a marriage event. So it'll be very much just community and spending time with other couples as well. So that's a huge piece.
Now we need to purchase tickets, right?
Yes.
So how do we do that?
You can go to Grace Marriage, our website, and gracemarriage.com /cherish. And that shows you everything to do to buy tickets. So tickets are $35 a person, $70 a couple.
Okay.
But for pastors and preachers and their wives, they're discounted. And for first responders, people in the military, also couples who are in Grace Marriage get a discount. So it's $50 a couple.
Oh, okay. That's good.
Yes. And it's from 1 to 6 p.m. And then you can go on there to a date night. There's so many wonderful restaurants downtown and things to do downtown. I think even the Crim's got live music that night. So you can have this day of just like an inoculation to your marriage. We just really have a heart to help couples thrive and be proactive. So taking a day like this gives you the opportunity to do that and then go on to a date.
All right, let me ask you this. All right, what if there's someone struggling in their marriage and just one of them wants to attend? What would you say to them?
I would say attend. You know, if you can get your spouse to come, that'd be great. We had one woman that she's widowed, but she just wanted to come and be encouraged. And someone bought a ticket because they just want to hear Janice Swinberg. I don't think they're married and they just want to come. I mean, so it's,
right.
But then also couples who are engaged that are going to be getting married. So it's really a great opportunity for them as well.
Okay. Marilyn, I want to ask you, obviously the Lord has matured you up, both you and Brad, in your marriage. You know, when you're looking back on your marriage, and we're not supposed to focus on the past at all. We're supposed to, you know, walk in the new and be present with the Lord. But how have you seen God work through your marriage as He helped both of you walk through this, and then as you're now helping other people?
Well, I know one thing I brought to marriage when I said we started out a train wreck is that I really came to marriage expecting Brad to make me happy, to fulfill me. And I had watched all the movies, and he was supposed to be my Prince Charming. And then he was none of that. I had taken my eyes off the Lord, and I'd put him on Brad for my hope. And he's not my hope. Christ is. So I was in graduate school at the time, and I'm learning all these theories. And I thought, if I don't tell him, he won't know. So then I was telling him everything he was doing to bother me, how I wasn't feeling loved. So you can imagine how well that went. So about a year into crying on a regular basis, I said to Brad, I need to come to you and ask for your forgiveness, because I have put you in a place you can't succeed. Christ is my hope, and that's where my joy is found. I don't need you to have joy. It's in Christ, and I'm sorry. And I'm going to bring to marriage what God's calling me to bring, but I'm going to get my hope from Him.
Oh,
and
good.
that took us to a stable place. And then the Lord, that actually gave room for the Lord to work on him. And then the Holy Spirit worked to convict him that he wasn't doing anything, and he wasn't laying down his life for me. And he wasn't living like the Bible was telling him to live in regards to loving me. And so it just was the beginning of us seeing, wow, like God's way works. And
Absolutely.
So it totally took us from a terrible place to excited to be married. And yeah, we still mess up, but we get over it so much faster, and we don't live in that place of constant frustration. So,
and that's maturity.
It's huge.
It is. It is. How long have you been married?
24 years.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And looking forward to another 24, right? Plus,
Amen. Yes,
plus years.
that's right.
What would you say to couples, you know, is the most important thing as far as their marriage? What can they do for their marriage? And obviously we're talking about grace marriage, but what would you suggest?
The first thing is your relationship with Christ is the only way. Like if I'm going to the Lord and I'm satisfied in Him, then I have that to give to Brad. And then second is dating your spouse. You have to be intentional. And I'd say those are the two best things we do for our marriage.
That's good. Okay, we're going to take another break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about exercise just a little bit. So everyone stay tuned for more Shaped by Faith. Welcome back to Shaped by Faith. We shape our bodies and hearts for God's purposes. Okay, Marilyn, you are amazing. And thank you for coming on Shaped by Faith and talking about Grace Marriage and the event. We're going to talk about that at the end in a few minutes. But I had you do a stretch.
Yes.
For your hips, right?
Absolutely.
And you were familiar with the stretch?
I was, because I have hip issues. So I was familiar with that stretch. It is so helpful.
It is, and just simple things to help our bodies, just like in our marriage, those simple things to encourage our bodies, our marriages. I had you just basically sit down. You had great posture anyway, but just to remind everyone, navel to the spine. Think about extending through your spine and your torso and leg over top of her bent leg. Mm-hmm. Now, if you can't do that, or if that hurts your knees or you're injured, I showed a modification in the video. We both did that, where you just kind of cross down by your ankle, and you can inch that leg up to where you feel okay with it. And then you kind of lean forward into it and stretch.
Yes.
Here's the thing. Most people don't think about doing the simple things that help us. Like you were saying, preventive medicine in our marriages is to work on them. So are stretches, for the physical body.
That's right.
The one that you did on the floor, I love that one. I do that in almost every one of my classes, where you just lay flat on the floor. And that's good anyway for the spine. I mean, anyone will tell you that. A physical therapist will say, if you can lay down on the floor, bend your knees up, just lay there, it's good. But you did the same thing on the floor. You just crossed your leg over. You brought your foot off the floor. I tell people, if you want to modify, just keep your foot down and just feel the stretch like that. But you brought your legs back towards you. So do you do that stretch?
I do that stretch frequently, because I do have hip issues, and it relieves pain even. And, the doctor told me that stretching prevents injury.
Absolutely.
So it's one of the best things we can do to protect ourselves.
That's right. Yeah. Just a little stretch here and there goes a long way. Let's go over the event again. It's February 29th, and tell us where it is and the time on that and how we can get tickets.
Okay. So it's at the River Park Center downtown from 1 to 6 p.m. And you can go to Grace Marriage's website, gracemarriage.com/cherish, to purchase your tickets. They're $35 a person, $70 a couple for that full afternoon. And there are discounts, like I said, for those veterans, first-time responders, for people that are involved in Grace Marriage, and also for all pastors and their wives. We really have a heart for preachers and pastors and their wives, because, they're leading so many couples in their church, and it's hard, but they've got to protect their marriages.
Absolutely.
So that they can shepherd their church as well.
How would you encourage someone that's out there listening? They're like, my marriage is pretty good. We're good. How would you encourage them to say, hey, maybe this might be good?
Oh, it will.
Your spouse.
It will just encourage your soul. It's just like an inoculation. It's just going to fill you up, and just to keep you going. So I think that it's a wonderful opportunity, if you're in a good place, to go to a better place and be proactive and fight the busyness of life. But I would say all couples need it. We're just in a day and time where there's so much noise around us, and our marriages are getting the leftovers. So if you're struggling, come. If you're doing okay, come. If you're doing well, come. Thank
Marilyn,
you so much.
Thank you for coming on Shaped by Faith, and thank you for listening. I'm Theresa Rowe. Everyone have a blessed day.